The mom and pop shops, like the little stores that could get you things that are weird, and they've had them on their shelf for 16 years, and I am that person they've been waiting for. Like that kind of stuff I miss.
For sure. Oh, hey, welcome back to the TENDO Show. Hannah, can you recall when was the last time you and I did a podcast together?
Oh, I think it was right when we moved. I remember doing a podcast up in your grandmother's upstairs.
Okay, so we must have done one right when we got back here. So has that been 5 months, 6 months ago?
About 6 months, yeah.
Well, I can go look here. Let me bring up the TENDO Show page. Okay, so this appears to me to be posted on December 7th. So yeah, what is it, May now?
Wow.
January, February, March, April, May. So 5 going on 6 months since we have podcasts together. We never really intended to get out of that habit, but when we moved here to Kentucky from Phoenix, I think we were just like, gosh, we don't really have a place to do this well because our shelves weren't put up yet, and B, we didn't have time.
Yeah, we were so busy when we first moved.
Well, look here. The title of this podcast is House Renovation. House renovating is hard work.
Yeah, I mean it is. Gosh, I feel like the house has come a long way.
Well,
we're still working on it.
Well, we've actually, that podcast, if you go back and watch the last one we did together, and I keep saying it that way because I did 5 or 6 podcasts with friends when we first got home, which we also never intended to get off track with, but that takes a little bit more explaining also. But when we first moved back to Kentucky, the big goal was to fix up my grandmother's house and bring it back up to par. And we did that. And then subsequently did another house that my family owns off camera, which I saved the footage up for and still haven't used on the channel. But God, we were so busy when we first got back here. And I think about every week that passed while we were doing that, I was like, all right, let's go do a podcast. We just never did. But a lot of things have happened this last couple weeks at the shop where I feel like we belong in this shop and our stuff is where it is. There's somebody I feel like that could have been tuning into this podcast right now and have no idea just by looking at this that we left Phoenix. Because for all intents and purposes, what you're looking at right now is darn near identical to what we sat in front of before we moved.
Yeah, like even the Furbies are kind of in the same spot.
Yeah, pretty much put them right back. The only difference was I kind of had a TV right here.
Yeah.
But
the Pokemon shelf was like over there.
Yeah, it was in a different order, but like if you didn't pay close attention, you could tune into this video right now and just be like, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
But I really have been spending a lot of hours at the shop these last few weeks just organizing stuff. I'm not going to be able to turn the camera, but right to our left, man, there was just a horde. And I mean, like you guys think you have a death pile, and I'm sure there's some people watching that are resellers that have a death pile. For those of you watching who aren't resellers, us resellers refer to our giant pile of stuff that's like not listed or gone through very well as our death pile. And so my death pile was like 20 or 30 cardboard boxes that were like 3 square feet, tubs and racks of stuff, and then I'm not exaggerating here, 30 IKEA bags, which are like 10, no, they're like 25-gallon bags.
Yeah.
Full of toys. But I finally got through it all, and it's all like, it's organized in a way where I can get to it all right now. And so that allowed me to also kind of finish off these shelves and get those in order.
I must say, well done. He did it by himself. I walked in and he was cleaning, and I just was like, have fun.
Well, I couldn't stand it anymore because there's just a lot of ways in which there's other content I want to make. There's other things we need to do. And there's about a dozen things we're about to talk about on this podcast that, we needed our space to be operating to be able to do. So that being said, on today's podcast, I'd like to talk about our bus, which I'm sure a lot of you might be here to hear more about. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit more about the shop and what kind of content we're planning on doing around here. Because it's just time. We don't really have that excuse anymore. The house that we're living in, it still needs a little more. It needs the normal work you would work on your house if you lived in one and owned it. So we've got work to do, but it's not it's not consuming us.
No, and it's definitely to a point where we can do it at our leisure.
Yeah.
There's nothing like pressing.
For sure. And, so all that being said, we now don't have any excuse to not get back into our podcasting and our other types of content. So all that being said, I guess let's talk about our bus. I don't know really where to start about the thing because we do have a video on the main channel. And, we bought it, we jumped into it, but there's just not an easy way to stand in front of the camera for our main channel videos and just really explain what we are doing and what we want to do, because every time we do something wild, I say wild, but every time we do something that seems wild to most, but really is just our next step that we've planned out quite thoroughly, it's always a little bit difficult to vlog about and to put on our YouTube channel because we're kind of, I'm trying to think of how to explain this without sounding a little bit irresponsible, but we're kind of we know what we can do if we do everything right, but we also know that the plan that we've made may take a little while longer because of money, because of things like that.
Sure.
But we've got a bus right now, and I would love to be on the road in September.
Yeah.
Just going to go ahead and say that. But there's a lot of things that have to happen before that even becomes remotely possible. We got to get the bus converted. We've got to leave with enough money that conceivably, if a bus breaks down, we can pay to fix it, which is a lot of money. There's just there's a lot of realities that September may not be doable.
Yeah.
So that being said, in our normal video, I basically don't address those kinds of things because half of the video is just going to be talking and explaining things, and I tend to stay away from that kind of thing as much as possible. But I want to get in that bus and haul ass to Phoenix no later than September. I'd like to be there for my birthday, September 5th.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem possible. So it'd be very dumb, don't you think, for me to stand in our videos and just be like, September, we're rolling out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because as many people as there are that watch our channel that kind of comment sometimes suggesting they think we're just rolling in the money. We're not. We're doing fine. We're doing better than we've probably ever done in our lives at this point, which I'm thankful for. But I don't have FU money to the point where I can roll out in that bus tomorrow and have no worries whatsoever. So that being said, what do you want out of the bus? Because I can talk all day about what I want, and you've heard me talk all day about what I want, what I want to do. But now that we've got it, after how many years of talking about getting one?
Gosh.
What do you want to do?
I mean, I'm just going to come right out and say it. I miss Phoenix.
Yeah.
I do. I genuinely miss it.
Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being sick about it, how much do you miss Phoenix? Because I'm at a 9 right now.
Really? I was going to be a little bit more conservative with it and say a 7 or 8, because there are a lot of aspects of Kentucky that I am very much enjoying right now. I have a garden for the first time in my life.
Sure.
And I love it. We can talk about that more later if you want.
Well, you'll have to remember to bring it back up. There's a lot to talk about there too. And that's probably the problem right now with getting back into the podcasting. We've just done so much in the last 6 months. Where do we start? But I do want you to answer that question, what do you want to do with the bus? But before we do get there, seriously, pick a number. Where are you at with just absolutely miss our life in Phoenix, things about Phoenix? What do you miss and how much?
I would say I'm kind of at a solid 7.
Okay, that's high.
I miss living in a big city. I've always wanted to live in a big city. I long for that. I really do. There are aspects about, I just mentioned, things here in Kentucky that I really love. And then there are aspects of things in Phoenix that I truly miss. Honestly,
the food.
Yes, the food, our friends.
Yeah.
That living in a big city, being able to kind of go to 6 different Targets and find whatever we need whenever we want.
Today, I didn't end up buying them, but I thought about buying this whole set of Ninja Turtle Pops and putting it on the shelf as an investment to sell later. But Leonardo was missing from them. And if we were in Phoenix, I'd have went to 5 more Targets and found it.
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing that I miss the most shopping-wise, other than thrifting, which I'll talk about in a second, is fabric stores.
Oh, sure.
There's a Joann's here, and that is it. And anybody who knows me knows I hate Joann's. So I really miss the fabric stores there. It's kind of put a hindrance on some of my work, but Amazon is great for whatever I don't can't get at Joann.
Sure.
But
there was dozens and dozens. Every corner had a fabric store in
and
Phoenix.
the mom and pop shops, like the little stores that could get you things that are weird, and they've had them on their shelf for 16 years, and I am that person they've been waiting for. Like that kind of stuff I miss.
For sure.
I mean, we can dive into the thrifting conversation, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's probably a whole nother episode. We could probably make a whole episode just explaining how much our life has evolved. I don't even want to say evolved because it's not really an upward trajectory, just a giant step left on how we are securing our reselling business items. But let's not get too heavy into that.
Yeah, I mean,
But it is it's probably the biggest change, especially since, not to steal your thunder here, but when we were in Phoenix, we made daily videos thrifting every day.
Right.
And now we're here, not only not making daily content, but there's no thrift stores. It's as opposite as it can be here.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the thrift stores in Phoenix were just wildly different. And that is something that I do miss.
Wildly different in quality of stock and orders of operation inside of the store that you could keep up with and try to maximize you know your luck. Quantity of stores, just everything about thrifting in this part of the country is different than it was there.
And being so close to the bins there, I miss that.
Being a 15-minute drive from one of the best Goodwill bins in the country.
Yeah.
Whereas now we're about 2 to 3 hours from a dozen different bins, which is cool, but the quality is not the same.
Yeah.
And all that other stuff I just listed, not the same.
I don't say that to say that our life has been more difficult thrifting or thrifting here is bad. Like, it's just very different.
Yeah. We've kind of had to relearn a lot of what we do. I mean, imagine how well you learn something if you if you do it every day. I mean, some of you are going to know. Some of you are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But like, we went to thrift stores every day. There is documented proof of this. 700 days in a row worth of videos of us going to thrift stores.
And sometimes 20 in one day.
A few times, 20 plus in one day, which actually is something I've been daydreaming about, getting back to Phoenix and maybe getting our friends Dan and Elisa or someone to do another 20, 30 thrift stores.
Do the marathon with us.
Yeah, it would be great. It'd be great. It's really something I've thought a lot about lately. But yeah, so it's wildly different. And I don't know, to be honest with you, and this might be part of the reason we kind of got back to podcasting right now, is there's this kind of energy inside of me that's awakening. I don't want to say awakening as much as probably coming back up. It's swelling again.
Yeah.
My whole life has been this roller coaster of inspired to do the thing, getting bored of it, reconfiguring my attitude in my life to figure out how to get back to it. And so like this YouTube journey we're on now, which we're getting close to 3 years, I guess. Does that sound right? We're somewhere past 2?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Yeah, I've lost count. I'm pretty sure we're heading towards our 3rd year of YouTube. And that's very much so been that way. We hit this high, and I'm like, this is great. Want to do this the rest of my life. And then I get sick of the same thing. And then I'm like, how do I change this?
That is something you and I have in common very specifically.
Yeah.
Like, I feel that way about my clothing stuff all the time. So it's...
Yeah, well, we both go so hard at stuff for so long, and then we just... Burnout is very easy for us to obtain. But, like... There's just a certain way in which we knew moving back to Kentucky would facilitate a lot of things we wanted, i.e. getting a workshop, which if for some reason you've been away from the channel for a while and you don't know, we're sitting in a giant warehouse right now that we're renting for just a fraction of what you could. It's cheap. We're paying next to nothing to be in this warehouse. And we wanted to do this exact same thing in Phoenix. We talked all the time about having a dedicated space, but it was, we'd look into it and it'd be $5,000.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, right.
Yeah. So I'm saying that because now I'm sitting in this warehouse I've always wanted. My collection's sitting behind me. This is a sound stage that we're on. I've built into a sound stage. There's rows of lights, and when we had this exact setup in Phoenix, it was in a living room that was 10 by 10 feet. We were squeezed in a corner.
Gave up our dreams of having a couch and a TV.
Yeah, we never had a
nightstand.
Exactly. We never had the normal stuff. We sacrificed it to do this. Which, that being said, this is a little bit of a weird tangent, but I was scrolling through TikTok earlier and came across one of Retro Rick's TikToks, and and I guess it's been a couple years now since he moved into the room he now has his game room in, and I've had the great honor of being there. And it's the same thing. I had the same reaction seeing that video as I've had other people that used to come to our house. If you ever watched our videos and for some reason did end up at our house to see our game room, you were always like, this is so much smaller than it looks on TV.
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly how I felt looking at Rick's TikTok.
Yeah.
It looks big when you see his videos, but when you know, and it's like this. So again, back to what I was saying. We have this warehouse. We have so much more that we just were never going to be able to obtain the way we were doing things in Phoenix. And I'm happy about that. And that ultimately makes me still feel like we have made the right decision. And you can speak to this if you like, but I feel like we made the right decision being here. And that right decision is now kind of getting me geared back up to make more content, to change some of the types of content we make, to get back to podcasting, and another list of things that we may or may not get into over the course of the next few podcasts. But I feel like we made the right decision, and now that I know that, I'm ready to work is the point I'm trying to make. But you, like, where do you fall in, like, did we absolutely make the right choice? Or do you kind of wish it could have went different? Do you wish we could be doing what we're doing now in Phoenix? Like, how do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, looking back at the decision that we made and where I was in my life, where we were in our life and everything, I think, without getting too heavy, I think it was definitely the right decision for my mental health.
Sure.
I feel like I have come a long way since moving, even just 6 months of stepping away from that life and kind of readjusting.
Well, you can feel free to get as heavy as you do or don't want. That's obviously completely up to you. But like I obviously know what you mean, and I can obviously reciprocate that. I think more so stopping the daily content did a little bit better for my mental health than specifically moving. To be honest with you, the process of moving here was amongst the hardest things I've ever done, and I don't personally struggle too much with mental health, but anyone that says that they don't struggle with it at all is lying. They're just probably not lying, but possibly unaware of themselves. But like, just dropping everything and coming back here and stuff in the immediate, those first couple months, I think I kind of found myself a little bit darker, and it wasn't like because I hated it here or anything that was actually externally negative. It was just like, as someone who has had several periods in their life where they've been, I would say, I guess, brave enough to load up everything and just go, which is something we've done together a couple times and kind of pride ourselves in. This time, I think it just ended up being too much, too quick.
Maybe.
Because I had a rough couple months when we got here, just kind of not knowing what to do, you know, just waking up in a town that's 5 miles across and just the whole world being different.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that I still kind of struggle with a little bit because, I mean, again, like I said, living in a big city is something that I have wanted my entire life.
Sure.
And leaving that is something that I still struggle with. Like, I definitely want to be back.
Well, it's difficult, too, because, like, when we do get to go back, when we get in our bus and we roll out and we get there, I mean, I'm ready. I've put myself in the right headspace to know what I want to do over the next 10 years. So I'm not saying that I think I'm going to go and then it's going to get dark again because we got to come back. I think for once in our lives, we're going to have put ourselves in a position where we can have our cake and eat it too. You know, where we can have the best of both worlds. Go spend the winters there, kicking ass, doing what we do. Come back in time for Christmas, see our family, spend months here in the workshop, bringing everything back that we got there, selling it, flipping it on whatnot. I feel confident that we've unlocked the right doors to do what we want to do, and I'm pretty excited about that. And that's really funny to think because when I started YouTube, the big dream was for the YouTube channel to be successful enough on its own that we just go ramble around the country, thrifting, having fun, making videos out of that. Now, of course, we had several attempts to kind of do that by buying our van, building a bed into it, converting it to kind of a camper, and attempting to do that. But the cost of living out west and exactly how much money YouTube was bringing in, it didn't allow for us to just go buck wild and do those things. And though we're certainly better off financially and closer to that now, it's still not like, I didn't just buy that bus and I have infinite money to buy diesel gas, especially in today's gas
we
prices.
Won't get into that.
Yeah, it's depressing. And honestly, as we're filming this right now, I haven't put up the bus video, but I'm anticipating a lot of why would you do that when gas prices are what they are. But
I'm assuming they'll come back down eventually.
yeah, well, that's, I don't know. I had a conversation with my grandmother last night. I remember like 2007 when I had just bought a big van, about like the vans you guys have seen us own on our channel. And I remember gas prices then getting up to like $4 a gallon.
Yeah.
So, that's 15 years ago now. So they go up and they come back down.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't going to shy away from the good deal we got on this bus just because I'm afraid of gas prices. Not to mention, the whole point of the bus is to slap the smart car on the back and drive and have an expense in gas that's a one-time kind of thing each direction. Park it while we're there, drive the smart car around town. So, it's not...
Which was always our intention.
Always.
Why we bought a smart car was for this reason.
Right. and I've said that. I think if you go back and watch some of our videos... If anyone ever finds this, comment the link below or send it to me on Discord or something. There are clips on YouTube of me talking about buying a smart car to put it on the back of a bus, and we're here. And that being said, since we've gotten to that, I think I can bring up some pictures here. I didn't do a good job of organizing these, but I will give it a try. These are just a bunch of photos I sent over to my computer, and they're all out of order, but here's some wall building that we did on the back end. Here's the bus from the side. But you can see here's a platform, and that is enough room for 2 smart cars.
Yeah.
It is. If you could forklift them on sideways, you could get 2 of them up there.
Oh, that's awesome.
You really could.
Yours and mine.
Yeah, exactly. His and hers. Get a black one and a white one. And I've got straps all along the wall, and I've got some other... this is the door that we put on the back. It's an actual, house door. Here's kind of the before and after of the paint. And, of course, if you watch our main channel YouTube video, a lot of you are going to have already seen this. But just so you can see it again while we're talking about it, here's before we built the back wall on. But you can see right behind this orange strap, I've built these semi-tracks. I call them semi-tracks. I forget the exact name of them, but they're in the back of semis a lot of the times so you can anchor things down. So we've got just the perfect ability to carry whatever we want, whenever we want. There's Hannah in the middle of painting, and
that paint is awful.
Yeah, it's not the best, but it is good for what we're doing.
It's good quality. It's just awful to use. I hate using it.
It's difficult applying. It's farm paint. It's tractor paint. It's what it is, but it's what we chose to use. But I'm very excited about this bus and its ability to carry things, and how much we didn't spend a crazy amount on it. We got it for a good deal. It's going to be reliable, and it's ready. It's pretty much ready to go itself now that we've built that wall. We have to finish, put some finishing over the drywall and insulate the inside of it and stuff. But after that, bed, sink, and just the bare necessities I'm going to build into the bus. And I did this with our bread truck. I built these things to be modular, where they just screw in the wall but can unscrew and come right out, so that the ability of the bus to just be a hauler when we need it is maintained. I'm not running plumbing. I'm not doing all this extra crazy stuff that I, quite frankly, am interested in and am capable of doing, and have at this point absorbed enough information to do that well. But where we're at right now, if it were a perfect world, I'd have a bread truck here that was just for hauling, and that could be on the back of a trailer of a bus that's a complete and total RV. But we're not rich, so we can't afford that. So what we have is a bus that I can drive around Kentucky for part of the year, just hauling loads of pallets from Goodwill bins, whatever I want to do. But then when we need to go and stay in Phoenix for months, it can be modular and turned back into an RV partially for a time. That's the goal. That's the outcome. And this is the exact kind of thing that I was talking about earlier, that these podcasts are perfect to explain, because I just don't know how to stand in front of a camera for our regular YouTube videos and say that as concisely as I need to in a way where everyone's going to understand.
Right.
But if you're watching our YouTube videos and you really want to understand our plans, these podcasts are perfect, because that's the spirit of the bus. That's what that bus is for. It is going to remain first and foremost a hauler, and its ability to be a camper is completely second to that. That's kind of answering the question I asked you back in the beginning, so we can get back to that now the long way. Now that we have the bus, something you and I have talked about for 4 or 5 years now, what do you want to do? What are you hoping to do?
I mean, short term, something that I've wanted to get into is furniture reselling. So I definitely am excited to have a larger vehicle at the moment to buy some furniture and flip it.
Sure.
Long term.
As big as you need to.
Exactly. Just short from a bus, right?
Yeah.
Longer term, I think doing longer trips, going different places around the country and just kind of exploring the way that we've always talked about doing some of these places that we haven't spent much time in. I know you've had the opportunity to go all over the country and do some traveling, but I wasn't along with you on those trips. So definitely spending time in, the Northwest or Northeast or
just places we haven't been able to go together yet. Yeah. Well, and just think about, like, as you say all that, because you and I have had these discussions for years now, like, it's funny how perfect this bus is for so many things you've talked about. Like, imagine we go to Phoenix, we pay it 3-4 months ahead, however long we're going to be there for a rental storage unit. Mm-hmm. And while we're there, we buy every couch and semi-nice piece of furniture, and we keep it in that storage unit. And then at the end, we lay down all the RV type stuff because it's modular. We move it to one side, and then we just stack couches and furniture that you find.
For sure.
It's just perfect. I don't want to say it's foolproof because as I've been trying to kind of warn as we go, like, we're not 100% sure when. We know we have the ability and money, and we know we've got what we need. We just don't know quite how to pull it off. So I'm a little hesitant to say, but, like, it just feels right. Everything we've kind of planned is coming together this way.
It feels like this is the first time in our life where we could pull it off,
For sure.
Whenever we lived in Phoenix, like you mentioned already, the cost of living was so high that it was like, well, I mean, what if we do this and we can't pay rent at the end of the month, and what are we going to do then? And it's it always cut it way too close.
Yeah, which is so funny to think. And I've said this, I think, on some other videos before, but, like, when it all comes together, rent for our workshop, rent for our living, insurance on a bus, and all that stuff won't even come to be half of just our rent in Phoenix, much less our other. Like, I know I bang on that drum a lot, but man, does something in the world need to change when living expenses are how they are.
We'll put a pin in that conversation, but I have a lot of feelings about that.
I know, especially given that some of the darkness in your mental state that you were referring to earlier. I mean, a large portion of that, if not sometimes all of it, came from that impending $1,500 a month for rent.
Yeah, I would say like a healthy 75% of it was that.
Yeah, I mean, and just and we lived there in Phoenix for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
I mean, what does a 5-6 year mortgage payment of $1,500 a month add up to? Go do the math. It sucks.
I don't want to know.
Oh, it's houses. It's multiple houses here where we're at right now, for sure. Multiple. Yeah. It's about a house per year. No, that's dumb. It adds up to being about 2 houses for the 5 years.
We could have very easily bought a house already.
Yeah, some cheap houses around here for sure with that amount of money. But it's just so everything else is so cheap here, which is it's the devil. It's the devil we chose. We chose cheaper rent, cheaper expenses to be able to do this. I wish I had a wide zoom out shot, so every time I said these things, you could see this whole warehouse we're setting in. I mean, we're just in a little corner over here of this massive room, and I'm happy for that. I keep looking around as we do this podcast, feeling this weird bit of deja vu, because when we do these podcasts, I kind of put myself in this, I don't want to say vulnerable, but this introspective frame of mind, and we do this, and I don't really access this frame of mind unless we're doing this exact kind of content. So I'm used to doing this in our game room in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. So now that we're in our game room in our workshop, I just feel odd about what we're doing. It just feels like what's happening right now.
It's just a constant reminder of where you are and how things are right now.
Yeah. It's odd. It's very odd.
Well, it's good to be grateful. It's good to look at what you have and go, hey, this is good. I'm happy with it.
For sure. I try to be that person really hard, to be honest. I don't like being unhappy with where I'm at. And that's honestly why, we had different struggles when we were in Phoenix. We all struggle with things, but for me, like, it's never been difficult for me to find happiness and to find level-headedness even when there's money problems. Because, like, let's be honest, of all the fears we ever had surrounding money in Phoenix, though it's not a small thing when you consider we just couldn't afford what we wanted and now we can. But outside of that struggle of always finding the money, save for 1 or 2 months very, very early on, we never failed to do so.
Yeah.
We had a really rough start when we moved to Phoenix. I took every dime I had from my previous job in life. I sold cameras that I had that I didn't want to sell. We used that money to move to Phoenix, and we got there and had nothing, and we were like, oh, crap, and had to borrow money to pay a couple months' rent.
Yeah.
That was like probably the worst period of our lives.
Honestly, I look at that time and I go, I don't think that was entirely our fault, because at the time I was supposed to be starting a new job, and my job kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed. Yeah. And in the meantime, I mean, I'm not gonna point fingers too much. But
we did get done a little dirty.
It wasn't exactly fair how that happened.
Yeah, I feel like one of these days when we get back in the momentum of these podcasts, a great idea for a podcast would just be telling both of our stories from beginning to end with jobs and how we got to who we are now that wanted to do this.
Yeah,
that's a great idea. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to it. But yeah, when we did move to Phoenix and had that rough few months, she had a job that was like, here's X amount of money you're going to get to do this. And then it was just kind of like,
by the way, it's not going to start next month. Oh, by the way, it's not going to start next month either.
So we were,
like, wait, what?
We had those $1,500 rent checks due, and we're promised the money. And they're like, actually, we're not going to start paying you until like 3 months from now. Which, let's be honest, after that scare, when we got back on top, a lot of what we do now was born out of that. Like, let's find a way to put ourselves into some sort of baseline money-making zone where that'll never happen to us again. And I'm proud to say that, like, I'm not dense enough to think that we're never going to have problems again. But, like, from everything we learned from living in Phoenix and dealing with that routine $1,500 rents due in hard times, like, I am definitely in a place now where, like, that's never going to happen again. Knock on wood, but, like, all this stuff here that's sitting behind me, is all dollar bills. Every one of these Furbies is a $50 to $100 bill, So, like, and I love my stuff, but, like, I learned a lot of lessons about having liquidatable assets. Now, I don't have houses to cash in for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but
maybe one day.
Well, certainly, it would be nice to continue to snowball this into that kind of thing. But realistically, I think this brings me to the next point I want to talk about on this podcast that I'm excited to get to. I have sold about $6,000 worth of my roughly $50,000 video game and toy collection in order to buy our bus. Mm-hmm. That's how we got it. I certainly alluded to that in our main channel video, but I really thought it was an important topic of conversation. It's kind of what I want to end on, or spend some of the meat, maybe not end on, but spend some of the meat of this podcast talking about. And I would definitely love to hear some of you guys' feedback and or versions of this same thing. I know there's people watching that are into this same kind of stuff we are and have been able to routinely over the course of their life for years or whatever amount of time you've been a collector, use some of your cool stuff as liquidatable assets. I think it's a very dope thing. It's a scary thing because there's a lot of stuff I sold to buy that bus that I don't want to say I hated to sell, but I hate that feeling of I'm shipping out this $100 game, and I know for a fact in 3 years it's going to be a $300 game. That voice in the back of my head sucks, and it's really more of an intrusive thought because I think that's mostly bull crap. I don't think you should be plagued by that too much, but I think all of us who are into this kind of thing often are.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that you can learn through this occupation for you to be able to confidently say that something will definitely appreciate and value. But there is that little bit where you're like, I don't I don't know what the future's going to hold.
Sure.
I mean, there could be a scandal or there could be some horrible natural disaster that, like, I don't know. Like,
who knows?
We find out that PS2 games are laced with some kind of chemical that is going to give you cancer and everyone wants to throw them away. I don't know.
Comment below. Would you still play your PlayStation? Would you still play Jak 2 on your PS2 if it were laced with
carcinogens?
Carcinogen. I was going to say asbestos.
Maybe something. But, you look at Beanie Babies. That's, always a funny example of how everybody thought something was going to be extremely valuable in like 20 plus years and people cannot give them away.
Right. Well, and a lot of people are feeling that way about pops these days, which is funny because I just spent $20 on a pop for myself, which I've never done. I did that today.
That's true.
An hour before we shot this video. But it's a Yu-Gi-Oh pop. This 1, 2, 3 shelves there is Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, which I'm very fond of, which is going nowhere, by the way. A lot of people watching. I should definitely expound on this in our podcast here. I'm not getting rid of everything. I'm not even getting rid of all my games. Matter of fact, that top shelf is almost full of nothing but Yu-Gi-Oh video games. Very passionate still about collecting and playing that kind of thing.
Sure.
It's just the 6 dozen copies of, Wii Fit. And,
nobody wants those stuff.
The same sports game. I have sold 3 of those 6 dozen copies of Wii Fit. And the first 6 or 7, I made like 20 bones apiece because people.
Too much.
It was dumb. It was almost regrettable.
It's shameful. You shouldn't even talk about it.
It's probably the dumbest thing I've ever done reseller-wise.
If you were one of those people that purchased one of those copies of Wii Fit,
well,
thank you.
Thank you, first of all. It wasn't that much. It was like 3 people, I think, paid $20, $25, and that was it, which is hilarious to think about. We have 10,000 subs. When we were doing daily content, we could get 4,000 to 6,000 daily views at the height of it. And it's funny that out of all that, there was 3 people that got the Wii Fit joke and was stoked to pay for a signed copy. And I love that about my life. You can put it on my gravestone. I mean, I wasn't trying to sell, like, I'm not out here trying to increase the market value of Wii Fit. It was
no means.
It was a big lol joke, and it went really well, and I loved it.
People understood it. That's all it was.
Well, it's funny because people understood it. So we're talking about live auctions on Whatnot, if you haven't caught up to that. And it's funny because we have about 150 to 200 people per night when we live stream and live auction stuff over there. And I'd say less than half of those people are diehard subs, and the other half are people on the app who have organically found us because we're selling something they want. And so I've had people drop in our streams and be like, why did someone just pay $20 for a copy of Wii Fit? What the heck is going on? And that right there, that within and of itself is the meme. And one of the funniest things I've ever been able to participate in.
It's hilarious.
But let's get more into that, though. So Whatnot has been a really interesting thing.
Yeah.
And I'll go ahead. I'm going to tie this into the bus here in a second, so bear with me. But let me tell a little bit of our Whatnot history just to make a few things make sense for you. And I've been pretty excited to talk about this because this is just something that I'm not going to say or dig into real deep on our main channel. But I'm super happy to do it here. I get a call from Retro Rick, who's very popular on the Whatnot app, and says, dude, I think you need to get on here. And I was like, and I swear to you, I can't say I'd never heard of it. I believe our friends Dan and Elisa had posted a video, and I'd seen on their thumbnail they had made a video buying stuff off Whatnot. And that was like a couple days prior. So I was like, okay, I think I told Rick. I was like, I've never heard of it. But then I was like, no, halfway through the conversation, I was like, no, my friends did post a video about it. So he explains to me what it is. And he says, I'm going to give you a number or an email to reach out to. You can get hooked up. You can get on. And at the time, it was a little bit more difficult than it is now, just several weeks later, to get on to. You had to have a referral, or you had to, at the very least, have a really solid back history of reselling and stuff. They didn't just want to let anyone on. And they're still, they still put people through the hoops of kind of proving that they have a reason to be on the app, which was interesting, which is kind of being someone who's never been in the ground floor of anything. I was like, okay, interesting opportunity. Let's do it. So I wake up like the very next day and re-edit our next YouTube video to address Whatnot and say, hey, we're going to have our first auction over there. And as a lot of things in our history of being quote unquote gaming YouTubers or gaming adjacent YouTubers was probably a better term for us. There's just this huge immediate wall of negativity.
Yeah.
I posted that video, and within 10 minutes, we probably had 30 comments that were all negative. And I was like, oh, crap, that sucks. What do I do? You really got to stop and think for a second. And it was a difficult thing to approach because I'm going to really level with you guys here. In our whole YouTube history, which now people kind of don't really consider us a gaming channel, but they certainly did at the beginning, we really niched down and fought to be gaming YouTubers. But in the earlier days, there was a lot of negativity. Most of the negativity we experienced on our channel was specifically surrounding gaming related things, to the point where, I'd hang out with other YouTubers and we would talk about that negativity and it being gaming related. And, it went on to the point where it was like, well, we want to build a community here in that typical YouTube way, and it's really starting to look like maybe that's not the exact community we want to build. So we went a little bit, when that kind of thing happened back in the day, we went straight towards clothing and became more of a Goodwill Bins channel. Way less gaming. We were the Goodwill Bins people. And still to this day, I think if you search Goodwill Bins and outlets a lot on YouTube, like on a blank account, a lot of what's going to surface first is us, and that's pretty cool for Goodwill Bin stuff. But that's just a little bit of back history to illustrate what I'm about to explain. So that negativity happens, and I'm like, well, I'm not above listening to it. So a lot of the complaints are kind of the same, and the same couple of things. And I'm like, all right, well, most of the things people are worried about are things being oversold for too much, which I guess there's somewhere out there on whatnot, things get hype, and that happens at auctions. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I went to auctions with my grandfather growing up, and he wanted this piece of furniture, and he knew that he had just seen that piece of furniture for $100 at the antique store around the corner. Usually clocks. I'm saying furniture, but I'm talking about clocks. But there's a couple people there that day that want that clock, and that clock goes for $300. I mean, that's auctions. So there was some negativity surrounding whatnot early on because people were afraid of that same thing being brought into the gaming community. And then the fear of perhaps prices on eBay go up just because there's history out there of this game going for this much on whatnot. So I consider this. I think, okay, well, can I do things on our live stream to kind of combat that and things like this? And I'm not going to get into every negative detail about it, but let me just basically tell you the story this way. The day of our first live auction comes, and I'm going, I hope this goes well, because at this exact point, we're discussing saving money to buy a bus and get to where we need to be by September to do everything we just described. And I thought, wouldn't it be dope if whatnot were a way to do it? Because it's not that easy to sell the volume of games we would need to on eBay. It's just much more difficult. So our first live stream comes, and I'm all but talking myself out of it because that day that we posted that video, the first, again, 30 minutes, the first 30 comments were all negative. Now, by the end of the day, mind you, it turned to where most of the comments were positive, right? But it was just that, like, the negativity came out first. It was the loudest, and, people had opinions. Obviously, there's always fringe, and on the fringe of the negativity was just like, I'm unsubbing right now. I can't believe you guys are this trash sellout, as you can expect. There's always some of that. And I will say there's plenty of people that were level-headed about it, saying, I personally don't care to partake, but I wish you luck. There was plenty of that, which I appreciate. But what's funny is we did our first live auction and now subsequently have done 10 or so.
Yeah,
and it's been as far the opposite of the worst warnings could be. I think everything we've sold right at, and I would say more than half, slightly under market value, simply because we sell higher volumes of stuff than a lot of our colleagues, if you will. I'm selling boxes of 20 PS2 games that are minty that would value $200 on eBay singularly, and people are getting them for an easy $100, $150, which I think is awesome, because A, we've got so much to move and we need to do it in a timely manner, hopefully before September. We need to get where we're going. And, other than a couple copies of Wii Fit, which I will admit to, but if you've been around the channel for a while, other than a couple copies of Wii Fit, like we've not given anybody a bad deal on whatnot. And, you know, and also there's another point here. We really like live streaming, and we've done a lot of live streaming on our main channel, these kinds of podcasts and other things. And it's kind of been scratching that itch. We have a great time for about an hour and a half once or twice a week with people. And so far it's worked out to a way where, like, everyone I've interacted with in there has been happy with the deal they've got. I've taken that money and I've put it towards a bus and a few other things that are kind of building the infrastructure for us to have a bus and do that kind of traveling. So to date, I think I've sold about a third of our video games, right at a third, which means we have about 2/3 more to go if I want to sell all of that stuff that's just off camera over here. And I think we can do it if we keep the momentum we have. And it just seems like it feels pretty good because we had a YouTube channel gathering all this stuff, and there's so many people that are excited to come watch us on Whatnot and buy a little piece of that, and they're getting a great deal on it, and it just keeps taking care of itself in a way where, like, I hope this makes sense to you, ties into this larger conversation that, like, right now things seem to be going in the direction that we hoped they would when we moved back to Kentucky, and Whatnot has facilitated some of that. And I feel really thankful that I didn't immediately cower to the direct negative response we got when we first did it, because it would have been easy to. I think, you know, it would have been easy to have made a wrong decision without waiting it out and realizing that, you know, again, we've had 6,000 more positive interactions about Whatnot and our selling on there than we ever did negative. But those negative ones were the loudest at first.
It can be scary, you know.
It was a scary week when we started it, but I don't know. We need, and this is gonna bring us back to what I brought up when we got into this conversation. Selling our assets to be able to do what we want. That's squarely where we are right now. And that's squarely what's going to propel us to the next video, the next podcast, everything. So that being said, like, how do you feel letting go of all those video games? Don't care? A little bit?
No, I don't care.
Yeah, so you care a lot less than me.
Yeah, I don't ever. I mean, I understood your happiness you got from getting them and everything, because I get that same feeling whenever I find a Bratz doll for no
wish there's 1,000 over right here.
Reason.
Yep.
The idea of letting go of my Bratz dolls is probably similar to how you feel about letting go of these video games right now. So I get it. I do. But the video games themselves, I play The Sims. I play Minecraft with you.
Right.
And I like having a copy of Kingdom Hearts and the games that I played when I was a kid.
Right.
Other than that, like, meh.
You don't really care. It's funny. Most of my consternation, if you will, of letting them go is that there's a certain part of me that's certain that some of the groundwork we laid over the other years of having multiple channels, podcasts, and just putting our claws into a few other things, there's just part of me that would still love to have a gaming-related channel that I run, that I'm like the face of, but someone else runs and partners with me. It's something I always wanted to do. That was the whole point of Rubber Duck Yellow. At the time when we started it, I had a roommate that I kind of wanted to do it, and then him keep the money, but me kind of use my face as it was specifically popular at the time on YouTube in the gaming world, which is way less now. But there was just a bright, shining moment where we had some momentum, and we were the new gaming channel. And I wished kind of then it had worked out in a way where I could have used this gaming collection to have a YouTube channel where you come in right here like this, yellow shelves, 10,000 games. What do you guys want to play today? Hype. There it is.
Well, I think there's still an opportunity for that. It's just a little different. You just go to the thrift store and be like, all right, I'm going to play this one.
That's what's funny. One of these days when maybe we're a little bigger and I have some more momentum to turn back into that kind of idea, the only thing that will be different from what I envisioned back then to now is they're just the visual of having 10,000 games right here.
Sure.
we'll still have all the games and access to all the games we actually want to play.
Yeah.
You just won't log in and see me sitting here in front of 10,000 games being a troll under the bridge, keeping all the video games. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So your height beast won't be scratched.
Yeah. That's the only difference between the actual eventual reality of me doing something big I wanted to do and what I thought I wanted to do. The only difference. And it's fine. And that ultimately is another one of the big things that's made me be like, well, I'm going to sell the bulk of the video games, and I'm going to immediately transfer that money into Bus, paying off a little bit of debt, and launching our next real journey on our YouTube channel. And I think that really sums up most of this conversation, that right there. That, you know, we're turning our video games into what we want. So again, as I asked for earlier, is there anybody watching that kind of has any version of this? Have you had anything object-wise in the past that you really wanted, but you talked yourself out of it for a better reason? Because that's what we're doing. But, you know, let's also be honest about the fact that we acquired every single bit of this video game stuff within 1 year of making YouTube content.
Yeah.
And we're now talking about going back to Phoenix for 3 to 5 months out of our lives every year. Fingers crossed if everything goes according to plan for the rest of our lives. And doing a lot of cool stuff along the way. And, mind you, if you're a dedicated viewer that's been around for a while, I'm really good at going to cities like Phoenix and buying certain things and taking them to trade-in stores and getting the best games with trading credit. And that's something I can't wait to get back there and do.
So we don't have to just find video games. We have to find guitars and mics and weird books.
All that
kind of stuff.
All that other weird stuff that I've traded in over there. So, you know, all things come and go. These games are going now, but it's honestly just creating room where we get to go do it all again. And we get to go do it all again as completely different people. I mean, think about the journey that we just explained.
Yeah.
Who we were. We went through all that. Here we are now. This time when we go back to Phoenix, we're so much smarter. And we have, you know, we're just so much different. It's so entirely different. It's going to almost, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a weird analogy to maybe express how I feel, but like, if you had to go back and take, I was going to say your high school classes is now a 30-year-old, but we're probably dumber than we were then. So bad example. I don't know. But, you know, or maybe.
Well, I would say more like if you had to go back to your first 3 years as a independent adult. Like,
knowing what you know now?
Yeah, for us, like us leaving college and going out on our own, the day that we drove to California and moved in, I feel like if we had to relive that, knowing what we know now,
we'd be
would
all right.
be light years different.
Oh, we just walked down the block to the thrift store.
And we had the coolest thrift store literally down the block.
We've told this story before, but let me tell it again briefly, just to tie it into this story at large. We moved to California the week after she graduated college. On a whim, I got hired for a job that I never even ended up doing when I got there because it was bogus. It's a long story, but
which also we would have known now.
Which obviously we would have probably sniffed out before it happened. But we get there, no money. I think I filmed some birthday parties with my camera before getting hooked up with a job that amounted to anything. But like we spent some months there eating frozen burritos from the grocery store, just broke as could be, with probably the highest quality thrift stores, singularly per thrift store that we've ever been around, even including Phoenix. But we didn't know what we didn't do all this. We weren't resellers.
I think like the one decision I would change, though I don't know, because I have to explain all of it. Okay, so you got hired for a job where you went and traveled across the country.
I ended up going to almost every state in the United States in like 8 months.
So
right out of California.
The one decision that I am talking about changing would have changed. The decision was me going with you.
Yeah.
So that would have been a little bit more difficult because we would have had to take our own car, and it could have potentially gotten tricky with your employers and all that stuff too. So there would have been a lot of.
Well, knowing what I know now, it would have been really easy.
Yeah.
Aside from the money aspect.
Right. So I would have had to then give up my career in bridals. So that would have ultimately changed me as a human quite a bit. So
Sure.
I don't exactly regret that I didn't make this decision, but knowing what we know now, as resellers, I probably would have decided to go with you on those trips. And while you went and did your big boy job, I would have been going to thrift stores
and made a killing,
reselling and just selling stuff out of our car.
I get what you're saying. I mean, that ultimately brings up another huge point. As resellers, as people who learn to resell to baseline, even if real jobs ever come back, our baseline is different, and reselling facilitated a baseline in which we will never, fingers crossed, knock on wood. I'm not superstitious. I don't know why I keep doing this. That baseline of we won't go that broke again was given to us by reselling. So knowing that, when we look back on those times where we were learning all this, sure, obviously it's natural to go, man, could have done something way different.
Yeah.
And that's quite similar to that thought process of, man, I don't want to get rid of these games because one day we all have to wake up today and make decisions and then live with them. And living with them is very often the hardest part.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's really what a lot of this stuff's born out of, which I like exploring, which is why, once again, this podcast I feel like is great, and I'm happy to get back to it. But let's kind of wrap up this podcast today with where we began. Let's go back to the bus, because it's what a lot of people are here for. And answer that question for me clearly, precisely. Give it some thought. What is that bus going to do for you? If all goes well. I mean, I know you've answered a lot of things, but and I'm going to give my answer too, and I could go first, I suppose, if you're not finding the answer. But which do you have an answer? Or do you want me to?
Well, I feel like the bus is going to allow me the opportunity to travel, which is something that I've definitely wanted to do for a very long time.
That's a great answer. It doesn't. I mean, that's kind of what I thought, but yeah. I wanted you to put a stamp on it.
Yeah, I have put that dream off quite a bit because of you name the reason I've thought it. So I think, despite my hesitation as I say that right now, oh, well, it's going to be harder than you think. Oh, well, it's going to be more uncomfortable than you think it's going to be. All that kind of stuff that I'm maybe you don't want to do it. I need to stop that and go, hey, it's something that you wanted to do. You need to do it. Just do it. So I think that this is that opportunity, Sure.
And I appreciate that, because if you didn't gather from this whole hour-long conversation, there's a lot wrapped up in our lives that had to do with either travel or the desire to travel. And that's usually been a huge thing that has bonded Hannah and I, was our desire to do exactly that. So, I mean, you don't have to think very hard and long about the kind and caliber and quality of traveling that is opened up by having such a mobile home.
Yeah. Because we can just go park it, and we could go up to Chicago for 3 months.
Sure.
And sit in a bus.
Speaking of which, you guys have heard me do this a few times, and I always hesitate to do it, but I'm going to go ahead and do this now. I've had people reach out to us in the past who I've had communications with, who I felt pretty cool and safe talking to, that have offered us a driveway for an amount of time, or even better, had tips about where to go and why and how and when, and good things to be at, whether it be conventions and all that. I'm really trying my hardest, and to be honest with you, I feel a very wide chasm in front of me of opportunity to fail. I feel very, very much so that I'm talking about doing all this, and maybe it's premature because I don't know if I can pull it off. That's just me being honest. But I am very much so. I'm coming to the shop and cleaning and doing another dozen things that I mentioned in this podcast, because I am just coming to work and behaving as the person should that's going to do the thing that I'm talking about. But that being said, as of now, I want to plan a trip. I want to plan us going to Phoenix and going some places in between and on the way. So if you're one of those people that we've talked in the past about doing something, or you've said I should go somewhere, and any of that stuff, certainly reach out again on our Discord. Let's continue the conversation, because when we are out and about, I don't want to be stuck on an island by ourselves. If I need to call somebody, I'd love to have those people in my inbox, So, and I appreciate some of you that have already in the past given us great tips and helped us and things like that. So that's one thing. And another thing is, and I'm definitely not going to sit and explain this too far on our main channel, but like, if you know anything about bus conversions, the other thing that introduces a lot of room for failure is it's like not very easy to get them and insure them properly and have titles transferred and have fire marshals checked. So like as of now, we got the bus home above board, but now we can't really go driving it yet all the time because we've got to get proper insurances now, not just like one day transfer insurances. We've got to do a whole bunch of stuff before it's roadworthy. So if there just happens to be anybody watching that's also an insurance agent or knows the right one to talk to, there's some of that stuff that we need to overcome. And now, mind you, I say that as someone who already has a surprisingly large amount of knowledge about that thing. So I'm not looking for the typical advices on insurance for schoolies, for RVs. I know a lot about that, but I want to get the right one out the gate, so I have had a conversation, I think once with someone on our Discord about exactly that. And I'm just kind of hoping if any of those people are still around and watching, they might reach out again, because it's very difficult to search through 6,000 direct messages that come through Instagram and Discord and find some of those old conversations. I mean, I'll go looking for some of them, but I'll be very appreciative if some of those people reach out again, because we've got a lot to do. And if there's, I'd love to find an insurance agent. I've never had an insurance agent that you go to. Like my parents do. They have an insurance agent where they go to, and those people just handle the stuff for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe a little bit more normal in a small town. I don't know much about insurance, but I've just always called the big guys and stuff.
Yeah. They kind of try to be like, oh, this is Susan at State Farm. I'm your
shout out
insurance
Susan.
person.
That is my insurance adjuster.
Is she really?
I've never talked to her.
Just
yeah,
picked a name.
Well, that's in Arizona, but obviously we've moved back, and that was my insurance adjuster in Phoenix. But now So again, I say all this to say, I usually on our YouTube channel, and I can kind of end with this. I usually on our YouTube channel like to not say, hey, we've got a bus, or like when we got our bread truck, I actually took 2 weeks to put it on YouTube. That's kind of what's happening with the bus right now. We're a couple weeks in of having this bus, and mind you, I think we teased it on Whatnot first, and so there's probably 100 people that already know we have a bus out of our 10,000 subs. But I'm just usually not in a hurry, because I fear, worst case scenario, I have way too much of an uphill battle with this specific bus, have to sell it, buy another one that's more apt for insurances, et cetera, and that's going to look dumb. Let me rephrase. I'm not worried about it looking dumb on YouTube, but it is what it is, and there's just a certain ferocity with which those comments can come in some days that are just like, where's the bus?
What did you do?
Yeah, so I say that to say I want to post the bus video today and then be ready for 10 more bus videos the next week. And in reality, we're going to be squeezing in a bus video every couple weeks, because it's a slow uphill battle for the insurance, for the converting to the RV. That stuff's not going to come in a torrential downpour right now. But just watch. You guys that like our podcast, you've heard me say this, so now you can go read the comments in the next week. So you're going to see all kinds of, what about the bus? Which don't bother me, but I'm just telling you what it is. But we have a bus. It is ours. I have the title in my pocket. Not literally. It's in that backpack right there. It is mine. And
You just casually walk around with a bus title in your pocket all day.
Well, yeah, that would be.
Really.
That's not what you're supposed to do.
No.
For sure. We don't own a safe yet. We need to get one.
Mm-hmm. We have one at. You have one at your.
Yeah, we have one
house,
at home, but
it's not ours. So
yeah, we need to get one for that kind of thing. But yeah, you guys rock. Thank you so much for hanging out for this podcast. Definitely subscribe to this channel if somehow you're here and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet. I'd appreciate it, because we're going to try to get some more of these in. I know we've had a bunch of comments over the last several months of where did the podcast go with my friends? And I've explained this a couple times in a couple different places, but the podcast we were doing on this channel with my buddies, it was just this weird series of events where the exact same week I got this shop. The other guy got a new job, and then the other guy got 2 new jobs, and it all fell apart. But what I think I'm gonna do, and this is again purely speculative, like a lot of what I've said today. I think I'm gonna have a rotating door policy and tell people I'm doing podcasts on X day. Everyone can show up, but as long as one person shows up, which obviously would be
me.
We're going to get a podcast out and keep discussing some issues. Because obviously, a lot of our podcasts thus far have just been an addition to our main channel content, which is fine, which I enjoy having that. I enjoy the quote-unquote companion pieces. But I'd like to get some more types of discussions in. So expect more podcasts on this channel. Yeah. Do go give our main channel video a watch if somehow you watched this one first, which if you did, I don't guess it's a big deal. Be a little weird, but that'll be that. And come back for the next one.
Which we could probably talk about gardening on the next one.
You want to talk about gardening? All right, come back next week for maybe a little bit of gardening talk. Because Hannah's very excited about that kind of thing. So until next time, guys, peace out.